Welcome back. I love that we got a groove beats in here today. Doing new things. You've done so many new things. You're out there and, your first day of school, your first job, maybe going on a first date. Undoubtedly, you have done new things your entire life since you have grown up. And John Christensen's actually here for his first time. But what is really interesting is even if you do or do not have a financial plan, there's almost 100% chance your kid doesn't have one either way. And the way you can treat your kid or help them understand money is such a key and I think newer concept. First, welcome, John. How are you today?
Doing good, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So John Christian has been a frequent guest speaker on many different financial aspects and also writes the Wealth Clarity blog for Highland Private Wealth Management. And today, in this concept of new things, kids and money and how to teach them is really, it kind of is a responsibility that falls on parents, but how do they do it?
Well, it as you said at the beginning, it really is one of our most important jobs as parents because kids aren't going to learn this stuff through osmosis. So they're going to only learn it if we share this information with them. So it's very important that we have the kind of conversations with our kids about not only the value of money, what is money for, what's its use, how do we view it as a family, but then really, how is that going to impact your life and how are you going to think about it as you age as a child into adulthood? And
so how are kids affected by their parents' maybe vision of money and what do parents maybe overlook?
I'm not sure they necessarily overlook something, but I think a lot of times they will think that wealth isn't going to impact their kids, especially when you don't have it maybe. And then once you do have it, you do realize that wealth has the amplifying effect of either adding to a very good situation, to the emotional health and the opportunity and the choices that a child has, or it has the impact of amplifying a negative situation and creating financial dependency, credit problems, any number of other things. So I think the first thing as a parent is to understand the impact that wealth does have and will have, and the only way you're going to influence that is by talking about it.
And, on the other side of the coin, I've heard people say, if parents are always saying, I hate money or they hate their bills or they hate these things that are coming in, it does leave that taste for the kids who ultimately end up disrespecting money in their own way, which, as you said, can really lead to those credit problems.
Absolutely. One of the things that we ask our clients is, what was your money history growing up? And that's an intriguing question for people because what did your parents tell you about money? What did they either say or not say about money that you will take into adulthood with you? So I think as parents, being very conscious about transitioning a view of money, but also the values that your family has, because you want ultimately, I believe, that child to understand the influence that money will have in their life, but that's not the only value, especially not as it relates to self-worth.
And so, and I think, but there are parents out there who equate their self-worth to finances. I mean, in America, that is a big piece of this. You watch TV, you look at the media, it's bling bling, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, kids, I think, kids will watch television shows. Everybody watches television shows and they start seeing these things that they want. And, you had actually talked a little bit about if kids are always wanting things and always getting them, you can almost start this path of lifelong financial dependency on their parents because they never work for anything.
Yeah, one of the interesting studies has shown that the families that are able to transition wealth well across multiple generations, the key element is that concept of work. And if the child never really learns the connection between money, work, and getting these things, and they're just given them, that leaves them really dependent in a lot of ways, emotionally and financially dependent, and in a lot of cases leads them down the path of some of these negative things we've been talking about.
And so what are some good things that, parents want to help out, right? I mean, they do want to, and it's not, you're certainly not going to tell your 5-year-old that money equals happiness, although it does make things easier. I had this conversation with my grandmother last night, actually, about, money isn't everything, but it does make things easier. And so I don't think any parents want to make their kid think, hey, you got to be rich to be happy. That's certainly not what people are thinking. At the same time, there's got to be bad things that good parents do.
There are. I think one of the big ones is being overprotective and micromanaging kids, especially as it relates to money. So what we love to do as helicopter parents is to protect our kids from any possible problem. And so if they make a mistake or have a problem, we're going to rush in and fix that, not let the consequences of their financial decisions somehow impact their life. And we're not really teaching them much there. Another one that I think is kind of interesting is to fail to give our kids realistic feedback. I think it's that concept of everybody on the team gets a trophy. And so as our children get into the workforce, they are going to meet bosses that don't necessarily think of them as highly as I think of my child, and will tell them how they feel. And if the child isn't prepared to hear that or to get that information, that feedback, that could be really damaging to them.
Well, especially if it's their first time. I remember hearing a story about kids who go tell their professors. The professors don't know what they're talking about because they've never been given, they can't take feedback. And then you have parents who go in and tell the other teachers they're wrong throughout their entire elementary, middle school, junior high school careers.
Mm-hmm. We've seen situations where parents are actually coming into the school system, coming into the work environment to check on their kids. That, again, is not a very healthy dynamic.
I would imagine if my parents were to show up, although my parents do come to the studio, if they were to show up and just start looking behind me, I'd say, hey, guys, welcome home. And B, I'd probably wonder what the heck they're doing. But I guess some kids, I mean, if you've grown up being able to have that umbrella, or as you say, helicopter parent, you probably come to expect it, not just financially, but maybe emotionally and morally.
You do, and I think it creates a sense of self-worth. So now all of a sudden your self-worth is tied to the financial life that you have or don't have. So now I need to have some of these things in my life, the $300 shoes, the certain kind of car, to have a status that ties to my self-worth. And instead of a view of who I am as a person without that money, because as we know, money creates a certain level of opportunity and choice, but it does not create happiness.
What about using money as a reward? That's a big thing these days.
I think it's hard to do that well, and so you have to be careful. The reason is that you can get a sense of, I'm only going to do something if I get some money for it. And so you lose the sense of contributing just for the sake of the pure enjoyment of contributing or the pure enjoyment of doing something. So there's a sense lost there that if I don't get paid or I don't get some reward, I'm not going to do this.
Well, and I think that actually it maybe comes true in the business world also, where people can be asked, can you help out with this? And they want to know, well, what am I going to get paid?
Mm-hmm. What's in it for me?
Yeah, as opposed to, well, I mean, as an employer, you end up sometimes looking at people going, we're just trying to get something done as a group, as a team here. And, certainly it adds up in the end, but you cannot, everything is you get A for B. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not always that trade. So when you're dealing with kids, I mean, if these are bad things, using money as a reward, giving kids too much stuff, failing to give realistic feedback, and emphasizing achievement when there maybe is none, what can parents do? And what are some of the best practices in helping them with financial education?
There's some really simple things. One is talk to your kids. I think we forget sometimes to just share with our kids the things that are going on in our lives, obviously age appropriate. So especially as it relates to financial decisions. Hey, we're making this decision. Here's how we're thinking about it. Here's how we're deciding between multiple choices. Or maybe we're not making a decision. We're choosing to defer buying something because we want to save to prepare for that decision. So again, bringing our children into the thought process, the decision-making process is a great first start.
Can you say Nike's or Disneyland, your call?
I don't know if it's that easy. But
I mean, is there that way? Can you make them, would it be an okay thing to do to say, hey,
sure,
you have choices to make. You want Nike's or you want to go to Disneyland or whatever.
Well,
family vacation.
I think that comes back to allowance. So where that really rubber hits the road is if allowance is one of the things we believe is a good thing to do. And especially age appropriate, where you're actually transitioning them to manage their own life all the way up. So by the time they are ready for college, they're making all their individual clothing and personal decisions and living with those decisions, and they're having to decide between Nikes and going on spring break.
Right. Although Nikes in spring might be a little young to give your kid enough allowance to pay his own way to Disneyland.
I think so. I think so.
What about helping kids? I mean, you talk about allowance and giving them a certain amount of money. How do you help them save it and practice, I guess? I mean, is there a piggy bank mentality you teach?
There is, and you can do it a number of ways with different buckets, one for giving, one for saving, one for spending. That works well, but I think it starts with just the conversation that we're going to have some age-appropriate work that's tied to your contribution to the family and whatever that is. And just like mom and dad have, we're going to save some of that, and some of that we're going to spend. And we're also going to bring you into our giving back to the community. So it's a sense of...
Can that be time and money?
That can be time and money. So there's a contribution to our family. There's a contribution to society. There's a contribution that's more than just tied to money and work and my self-worth.
Sometimes if you want to eat off a clean plate, you're going to put it in the dishwasher.
You're contributing to the family.
Contributing to the family sanity.
That's right.
Talk a little bit more. We have about a minute before we have to go to break. Again, we're here with John Christensen, CEO of Highland Private Wealth Management. Talk a little bit about maybe age-appropriate work for kids.
I think it really depends on, especially I've got 3 kids, all most out of college now, but I can remember at the younger ages where it is just, hey, help mom and dad load the dishwasher, something that they can do. But as they get older, it's much easier to have them contribute to the family in much bigger ways.
They can mow the lawn.
They can mow the lawn. Now, that's in concept, they can mow the lawn.
I'm only drawing on my own childhood experiences here, so.
Right. So, and I think that's important, that those things be tailored to each child and where they are in their life and kind of what kinds of things they're wanting to do.
Are there inappropriate things?
The only thing we caution is paying for grades. We think that leads to more performance-based mentality, which we think there's plenty of. And so the idea that you are going to school and that's work is really about more education and learning, in our opinion. And you don't want to tie learning and education to a performance-based activity, which then ties to dollars.
And I would imagine that can be what ends up putting people in that position where all of a sudden after college they get a job and they stop learning. Because the carrot is no longer there. Or
they take a job that isn't the job they really are passionate about because they want to earn the job that makes the most. So they don't chase the dream or the passion they really have.
I would say that's debatable. A lot of people can take the job for more money.
That's probably true.
Again, that's John Christensen, CEO of Highland Private Wealth Management. When we come back, we're going to bring everybody back from the hour and talk a little bit more of these new concepts and asking clients and kids to embrace new strategies or game plans. My name is Ben Brashen. You're listening to Brashenomics.